This is my all-time favorite story. Though all air investigations intrigue me, but this has been the most favorite of all. Not only that it has a happy ending, also because it is an example of courage and determination. It is true story of miraculous landing of Flight 143 of Air Canada, when a Boeing 767 takes off from Montreal, Dorval International Airport, now known as Trudeau International Airport, on July 23, 1983 at 5:48 p.m. Eastern Time, carrying 61 passengers and 8 crew members. It was a nice sunny day in Montreal. It was warm and comparatively high temperature and no recorded precipitation. A perfect day for a perfect flight. You can only anticipate. This flight took off with one stop over at Ottawa to reach its destination on time. It was supposed to be just a routine flight on a regular day, which all changed when this Boeing 767, which had covered half of its journey, had to face a situation. Something no one, be it the pilot or the passengers, want to ever hear. Both the engines had stopped working. The cockpit went dark. The engines were silent. There was no power, no thrust, no hydraulic systems. When a routine flight turned into one of the most extraordinary aviation events in history. Since the plane was gliding on very high altitude, there was enough time for the pilot, co-pilot, and the control room to try to sort things out with patience and calm. Very soon it was clear there was no technical flaw with the engines which could be fixed. It boiled down to one problem. Engines ran out of fuel, and there was no way to refuel them. In the middle of the sky, Flight 143 had run out of fuel, but how? For the pilot, there was no time to think about that. All he wanted was to land the plane, somehow, somewhere. He informed the control room and asked for a nearer airport to land. Now, Boeing 767 was gliding at 41,000 feet, with no engines running. A true test of the captain of the ship. Captain Bob Pearson was a competent pilot who knew now that the fate of his jet, along with 69 souls on board, are depending on his patience and skills. So, he started working with co-pilot, crew, and control room on the available options for landing. Captain Bob Pearson, an experienced glider pilot, and the co-pilot of the Gimli Glider was First Officer Maurice Quintal, worked together calmly, methodically. Their best option? An abandoned Air Force base in Gimli, Manitoba. But they didn't know it was now being used for car racing. Back in 1983, it was not the time for satellites. The old airbase was converted into a recreational place for car racing. It was Sunday, a holiday, and families were enjoying the sunshine, car racing, and kids were cycling. Since the jet had no engines running, so there was no sound either, the plane was coming closer and closer to the runway silently. As the plane descended, the crew had to manage every moment. They deployed the ram air turbine to get some emergency power. They lowered the landing gear, but the front wheel didn't lock. There was no time. They were coming in hot, fast, and silent. On the ground, families were watching a drag race. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a giant airliner appeared over the trees. No sound, no warning, just the shadow. As they approached, Captain Pearson focuses on the target. What was on the ground? That was not on his mind yet. He was gliding a giant passenger jet, pretending it to be a glider. That was the only option he had, because he had no control over the speed of the plane. He had to maneuver the landing for a much smaller runway, with no emergency aid around. He took his chances. By gauging the threshold of the runway, the pilots touched down hard. The nose gear collapsed. Sparks flew. The plane skidded down the runway and came to a stop safely. No doubt, it was a miracle. No casualties. Very few injuries of the people on board. After this miraculous event, the Boeing 767 was given the name as Gimli Glider. Bringing that giant airliner safely to the ground was a pinnacle of unwavering nerves, razor-sharp focus, and a true sense of responsibility, which needs to be remembered, always. Gimli Glider came back to the skies within few weeks. And completed its retirement age of 25 years. What really happened to the brand new jet, which caused the panic? The whole matter was thoroughly investigated. It was time of conversion from imperial way of measurement to the modern scaling. The ground crew calculated fuel in pounds. The pilots thought it was in kilograms. They had half the fuel they needed and didn't know it. No one was persecuted for it. It was considered a human mistake. The Gimli Glider wasn't just a story of survival. It was a lesson in humility, teamwork, and the importance of precision. In aviation, even a tiny miscalculation can lead to disaster. But calm thinking and courage can still bring you safely home. In the end, it reminded the world. Humans make mistakes, but they can also rise above them.